11:57 p.m., the 9th of October, 2025, away Shaheed, in the dark waters off Corridor. The American theater commander huddles beneath a canvas Dodger, drenched by the spray of the sea, while plywood-hulled boats navigate past the mine-laden areas, moving cautiously into the treacherous night seas patrolled by enemy forces. Brilliant searchlights slice through Manila Bay as four small crafts from Motor Torpedo Boat Squadron 3 cut through the choppy waters. Their Packard engines are throttled down to minimize the noise and keep the wake short, allowing for stealth as they progress. Lieutenant John Duncan Bulkley, a lean officer in the United States Navy, has already endured months of intense hit-and-run sorties. He expertly pilots PT-41 through the minefield, with a Navy mine layer coordinating the boats that fall. 10:04 p.m., the 10th of October 2025, Mr. Collin. Imagine standing before a conqueror so ruthless that his very name became synonymous with terror across two continents. A man who didn't just kill his enemies, but transformed their deaths into performances of calculated horror, designed to echo through history as warnings to anyone who dared oppose him. Genghis Khan's execution methods weren't merely acts of violence, they were instruments of psychological warfare, carefully crafted to break the spirit of entire civilizations before a single arrow was loosed. Today we delve into the darkest chambers of Mongol justice, where death itself became a weapon more powerful than any sword. The world of the 13th century was brutal by any standard, but Genghis Khan elevated cruelty to an art form with purpose. Born 10:09 p.m., the 10th of October 2025, away Shaheed. Imagine standing before a conqueror whose very name evokes fear so profound that it resonates across two continents. Genghis Khan. This was not merely a man who vanquished his enemies. He transformed their deaths into orchestrated spectacles of horror, designed to echo through the annals of history as stark warnings to anyone who dared to resist him. Genghis Khan's methods of execution transcended the realm of mere violence. They served as instruments of psychological warfare, meticulously crafted to dismantle the will of entire civilizations even before a single arrow was loosed. Today we will explore the grim corridors of Mongol justice where death became an instrument far more formidable than the most finely honed sword. The world of the 13th century was brutal. However, Genghis Khan took cruelty and turned it into an art form, all served with a calculated purpose. Born as Temujin around 1162 in the unforgiving steppes of Mongolia, he emerged as a unifier of the fractious Mongol tribes, ultimately forging the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Spanning from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe, his conquests incorporated lands that now encompass more than 30 modern nations. Yet Khan's military prowess was equaled only by his ruthless willingness to utilize terror as a strategic weapon. The executions that Genghis Khan sanctioned were not mere acts of sadistic pleasure. Instead, they were deliberate atmospheric statements inscribed in blood, torment, and suffering. To comprehend Khan's execution methods, one must appreciate the cultural and strategic context of Mongol warfare. The Mongolian steppes produced warriors for whom mercy was an alien concept, where survival hinged upon absolute superiority over both enemies and the unforgiving natural world. Genghis Khan embraced this harsh worldview, refining it into a philosophy of conquest. He held the belief that any form of resistance to Mongol authority warranted the most severe retribution, while those who surrendered peacefully would be granted clemency. This binary approach to justice fostered a system where execution methods served dual purposes: punishment and propaganda. Cities and kingdoms were left with the stark choice to submit willingly or face unimaginable horrors. The Mongol legal code known as the Yasa enshrined many of Khan's principles about crime and punishment. Although a mere fragment of this remarkable document remains, it established clear guidelines for execution, at times specifying the methods to be employed. Surprisingly, the Yasa exhibited surprising leniency in certain areas, allowing for forgiveness of minor thefts and mandating religious tolerance throughout the empire. However, crimes against the state, treachery, and defiance of Mongol rule were met with the ultimate penalty. The subsequent executions were not random outbursts of brutality, but calculated demonstrations designed to serve multiple objectives simultaneously. Perhaps the most notorious method of execution attributed to Genghis Khan was the bloodless execution reserved for nobility and royalty. Anchored in Mongol tradition and shamanic beliefs, royal blood was deemed sacred and should never be spilled upon the ground. This superstition gave rise to one of history's most disturbing techniques. Victims would be tightly encased in carpets or felt blankets, and then trampled to death by cavalry or crushed beneath heavy objects. One such notorious victim was Shah Muhammad II of the Khwarezmian Empire, who died fleeing Genghis Khan's forces. His son Jalal ad-Din Ming-Bornu witnessed numerous Khwarezmian nobles executed in this manner after their capture. Persian chroniclers who documented the Mongol invasions recounted these carpet executions with a mixture of horror and fascination. One particularly detailed chronicle by Atev Malik Juvani, a Persian historian, indicates that noblemen were rolled up so tightly in felt or carpets that they could barely breathe before being positioned in the path of Mongol cavalry units. The thunder of countless hooves would gradually crush the life from the victims, a process extending agonizingly over several minutes. The psychological impact on witnesses was significant and chilling. Observing their once powerful leaders reduced to formless bundles, muffled screams fading into silence, and the sight of carpets slowly transforming under the weight of lifeblood that never touched the earth. The rationale behind this form of execution extended beyond superstition. By preventing the shedding of blood, the Mongols believed they thwarted the victim's spirit from seeking vengeance in the afterlife. Furthermore, this execution was designed to humiliate. In the warrior cultures of Central Asia and the Middle East, a glorious death in battle was the highest aspiration. Instead, these noble victims were rendered powerless, akin to mere furniture, crushed and suffocated without even the chance to confront their executioners. Another terrifying execution method that illustrated Genghis Khan's strategic ruthlessness was the pouring of molten gold or silver into the eyes and ears of captured officials. This particularly grotesque fate was often reserved for corrupt administrators or tax collectors who had exploited their positions or betrayed their oaths. The symbolism was unmistakable. Those blinded by greed and deafened to their people's sufferings would experience the literal consequences of their moral failings. The most graphic account of this horrifying execution method is attributed to Anulhak, the governor of Utra, who precipitated the Mongol invasion of the Khwarezmian Empire. In 1218, Inulhak made a fatal mistake. He seized a Mongol trade caravan, executed the merchants, and confiscated their goods, claiming they were spies. When Genghis Khan demanded justice, Shah Muhammad II audaciously refused to surrender the governor, choosing to execute Khan's ambassadors in an unforgivable affront. The ensuing Mongol invasion wreaked havoc across Central Asia. When Utra finally fell in 1220 after a prolonged 5-month siege, Inulhak was captured alive. Contemporary sources provide a hauntingly meticulous account of his execution, personally decreed by Genghis Khan himself. Inulhak's execution was carried out publicly, with regional officials compelled to witness the gruesome event. He was restrained completely as executioners prepared their instruments. Crucibles of silver were heated until they flowed like molten streams, with the first pour sent into Inulhak's ear canal, likely causing excruciating agony as the liquid metal obliterated delicate tissues. His pained screams would echo across the execution ground, further terrorizing the onlookers. The molten metal would subsequently destroy his eyes, boiling the vitreous fluid and likely reaching the brain, leading to seizures and incomprehensible pain. Notably, this gruesome execution process unfolded slowly, serving as an extended performance of terror rather than a swift execution. Inulhak's body would convulse violently, his muscles reacting instinctively to the trauma. The lingering stench of burning flesh, coupled with the haunting visual of a victim's final moments, left an indelible mark on all who bore witness. Eventually, as death arrived, the body was displayed, frozen in a grotesque tableau, silver tears forever staining his cheeks. A dire monument cautioning others against defiance of the Mongol Khan. The brilliance of such executions became evident, as rumors of Inulhak's demise spread like wildfire across Central Asia and the Middle East. Subsequent Mongol campaigns were met with noticeably less resistance from local governors and leaders, many opting to surrender rather than risk similar fates. Genghis Khan's strategic application of sheer terror preserved Mongol lives while expediting conquests, creating a climate of fear that rendered potential adversaries too terrified to resist. This was terror as military strategy elevated to a level of sophistication comparable to modern psychological operations. Another particularly disturbing execution method employed by Genghis Khan was the systematic annihilation of a victim's identity, an endeavor aimed at obliterating their legacy before they even took their last breath. When the Mongols captured Turkin Khartan, the mother of Shah Muhammad II, she was subjected to a fate designed to erase her existence entirely. This formidable woman had played a crucial role in directing the affairs of the Khwarezmian Empire from the shadows, wielding considerable influence over her son's disastrous decisions. Her cruel execution underscored how Khan's methods targeted not just the body, but the very essence of the victim. Historical significance. In a grotesque display of humiliation, Turkin Khartan was reportedly sewn into a warm donkey's hide. As the hide dried in the sun, it gradually constricted around her body, a slow and torturous process that could extend over several days, caused agony as her limbs and torso were progressively compressed. Victims of this execution method were often displayed for public viewing, ensuring both the Mongol soldiers and local populations were forced to witness their descent into despair. As the hide tightened, the desperate screams of the victim would resonate with increasing urgency, their labored breathing a painful reminder of the reality unfolding before them. The gradual compression led to grotesque swelling and necrosis in the extremities, as the sense of impending doom became a profound psychological torture. Observers would frequently recount how victims would beg for a swift end, offering information or wealth in exchange for mercy that was never granted. This obliteration of identity extended beyond mere physical suffering. The Mongols would intentionally obscure any records of who these victims had been, referring to them only dismissively as the one in the hide. No burial rituals in accordance with the victim's cultural or religious beliefs were ever performed. Instead, bodies were left accessible to scavengers or disposed of in undisclosed locations. This method of execution encapsulated a uniquely Mongol perspective, not just terminating life, but erasing historical presence itself. In cultures that place immense value on legacy and remembrance, such a fate signified a death that transcended mortal destruction. It was an annihilation of memory. Another particularly chilling execution technique employed by Genghis Khan involved drowning victims inside a wooden cage, a method reserved for those who had betrayed sacred oaths or the Khan personally. The victim would be confined in a cage too small to allow any comfortable movement, and then submerged in a body of water. Though they could see the light above, escape was forever ungraspable, creating a torturous mental state, a constant reminder of hope tantalizingly out of reach. Various chronicles of the Mongol conquests recount instances where this method was applied to defectors who had previously pledged loyalty to Genghis Khan. One harrowing account recalls the plight of a Chinese general who, having defected to the Mongols and subsequently attempting to sell military intelligence to opposing forces, met his end in this disturbing manner. After his betrayal was discovered, Genghis Khan ordered the construction of the dreaded drowning cage as his punishment. The general stood in water while the cage was built around him, sealing his fate before his past troops. The morbid efficiency of the execution was horrifyingly meticulous. Once the cage was assembled, not only was it designed to ensure the victim could see the surface above, but it was weighted to facilitate its descent into deeper waters, leaving the victim suspended and unable to escape. As the cage sank, witnesses would later recount the growing panic of the general as he clutched the bars, desperately seeking the last breath of air. It was in this psychologically torturous moment that the depth of Mongol cruelty became fully illuminated. Water would rise to his neck and then his chin. In the final moments, when only his face remained above, fear would transform into horror as he could no longer retain his breath. The agony of drowning was drawn out, with the cage allowing for fleeting moments of hope that quickly dissolved into despair. Instead of a rapid demise, the cage extended the suffering, evoking terror both in the victim and those forced to bear witness. The horror unfolded slowly. Sensation became unbearable as the body succumbed to drowning, the mental anguish sharp and prolonged. This monstrous execution method cumulatively illustrated the psychological sophistication of Genghis Khan's strategic cruelty in his quest for absolute dominion, a narrative of terror that left an indelible mark on the historical consciousness. of those who lived under his relentless reign. Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to support our work and never miss an upload. Like, comment, and share.